Hi everyone, my name is Mayana. Welcome to Mayocore. Let's try this again. Hi everyone, my name is Mayana. Welcome to Mayocore, and today I'm going to be talking about book talk and anti-intellectualism. This is a video that has been sitting in my notes for a while because I just wanted to be able to compile some thoughts about it. And originally I had a different video planned for today, but I realized I haven't done a video essay in a minute, and I was scrolling through TikTok and I saw this video that was talking about this article that was talking about elite college students and how they don't know how to read an entire book, and I was so fascinated by that. And I know on TikTok a few months ago the topic of anti-intellectualism was very popular. If you're someone who wants me to like shit on book talk and stuff, this video probably isn't for you, because surprisingly that's actually not the conclusion. Book talk has its faults and I have so many issues with book talk, but I'm also on book talk, so it's like, as someone who's actually in the community, even though I don't consider myself as like a book talker, I see firsthand what it's actually like and what actually happens versus like outside issues or videos that happen to go viral, or videos of some random man on YouTube talking about the women in book talk. Like, I'm actually in the community and I see firsthand what it's like. All in all, if you're someone who thinks that book talk is the issue and you want me to shit on it, this video is probably not for you. So first I'm going to tell you what is an intellectual, and to be intellectual is to be an intellect, and an intellect is the power of knowing as distinguishing from the power to feel and to will, the capacity of knowledge. It's someone who engages in critical thinking, research, reflecting about the reality of society, and proposes solutions for its normative problems. So basically I feel like saying an entire community is anti-intellectual is unfair, because not everyone in the community is the same. And sure, I don't think that just because you don't read critically, or because you read the shittiest book ever known to man and gave it 5 stars, that you're automatically like anti-intellectual. But I do think that we have an intellect problem in the world as a whole. I'm sure you've seen those videos of like 5th graders not knowing how to read, or I just saw a video the other day about 5th graders not knowing how to write their own name. And yes, I do think that it is a fault of like the pandemic, but I also think it's the parents' fault. They're not doing the at-home work. They're not teaching their kids how to like read at home. And I think that a lot of parents are just sending their kids to school. They're treating teachers as like second parents. I'm not a teacher, so I don't know. This is something that I'm seeing from like a lot of teachers' perspectives, or a lot of like my teachers' friends, but it could be different everywhere. I'm just saying that like I've noticed that like it is a real like learning struggle. Like, I don't know, I get it, like a lot of parents have like, they have jobs and they have to like go to work, and then once they get home they have to like cook and clean or whatever, but I feel like if you can't take time to be a parent and teach your kids things, like maybe you shouldn't really be a parent, because being a parent isn't just making sure your kids get to and from school and feeding them and putting a roof over your head. Like, it's being there for them, it's helping them in their time of struggle, it's teaching them how to read, and it also shows the importance of like reading at home. Also, I think that because like a lot of parents are like millennials, they probably didn't like reading in high school, so they don't feel like, okay, well, I didn't like reading when I was in high school, I didn't like the lecture, I didn't like the forced reading and things like that, so I'm not gonna make my kids do it. But it's like, reading is important. I'm sorry to tell you, but it's been important for millenniums and whatever, so it's gonna be important for a very long time. But like, a big reason as to why I love reading so much is because my dad used to read to me growing up. There used to be a I don't know if it's still a program, because I'm not a parent, like I said. I'm not a parent, I'm not a teacher, but I know there used to be a program where if you read 30 books for 30 days, you got a free pizza certificate to Pizza Hut. And I've been like a huge lover of pizza my entire life. Like, y'all know those like pizza's life memes. That's always been me. Like, to this day I still love pizza. Like, to this day, if you want to make me happy, bring home Mayana some pizza, and that's how you make my day. But I used to like make my dad, like, I'm like, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna read, because I want pizza, so either you're gonna buy me this pizza or I'm gonna get this pizza for free, but somebody's giving me pizza. Okay, and so me and my dad, we would read and have so many favorite stories I used to read with him. And also, it's just such a nice memory. Like, I used to read with my mom as well, but it's just so nice having those memories of like reading with my dad, and like those books being passed down to like all of my million siblings that I have. Just like I've been reading ever since then. Like I don't really remember like reading in like 3rd grade, but I've been a huge reader ever since then. Like I didn't become an avid reader until I was in 7th grade, and I realized how fast I could read. I read a book in a weekend and I was like, oh my gosh, like am I a fast reader? And then 7th grade is when I started reading avidly. But I used to love reading. Like I would read like the Cheetah Girls books, I would read like Babysitter's Club, because my mom was also a huge reader, and that's also what helped, is hearing my mom talk about books online with her friends, her best friend, and it just sounded like a book club between them two. And they were buddy reading before buddy reading was a thing. But like my mom used to be one of those moms who would like just sit at home and finish a book in a day, and then my mom would like take us to the library, we would pick out books. And I've always been bad at reading popular books, so I would always pick up the popular books and then not read them. But then the unpopular books I picked up, like I would pick up like some random book and I would read that, and I would freaking love it. So my mom also plays a big part in like why I love to read so much. And my mom doesn't read anymore because she loves her job. She focuses so much more on like her job, but she also feels like she's read everything in that genre that she loved to read. My mama loved a good urban romance, and she feels like she's read everything that genre has to offer. So unfortunately I can't. I'm gonna try to get her into reading. I'm gonna try to get her back into reading, but like very slowly. Yo, why did somebody recommend my mom to read The Court of Thorns and Roses from her job? I want you to guess the age that the girl probably was, because what are you doing? Why are you recommending a 4-year-old black woman some book about white fairies? Like, come on now, like, please. I'm not a teacher. Those are just my thoughts on it. Like, reading, the love of reading was something that was influenced to me by both of my parents. And honestly, even if one of them, like if my dad never read for me, I would have probably still loved reading, because my mom, I had my mom as an example, and if my mom wasn't my example, my dad still would have been a reason why I love reading, because I read with my dad. So it's like I have those two examples, or those two people. And even though my dad didn't read, he knew the importance of reading and the importance of like teaching your kids to read. So I still had that. Whereas my mom, she read for fun, so she showed the importance of reading for fun. And I mean, I don't think it's like, I think it's a good hobby to have, but I'm not being like everybody should read for fun. But I do think it's a hobby to have. But maybe everybody should read for fun. Maybe we won't have this problem that we're having. I gotta stop with these glasses. I just read this article on how elite college students can't read full books, and basically the article was saying that a professor had a student share that she found the early assignments very difficult, and in this professor's class you basically have to be able to read a book within a week or two, and she really struggled with that because she's never had to read a full book like cover to cover before. And like in her high school, they only had to do, the most they had to do was like excerpts and articles and like poetry. And I can't tell you what the rest of the article said because they wanted you to sign up for it, and I wasn't doing all of that. To me, that's where anti-intellectualism starts. People not being able to read critically, but also people not being able to read at all. I think that criticizing books is important. I think that's very obvious if you like take a look at my channel. Like I analyze a lot of books, I critique a lot of books. If you watch any of my wrap-ups, like I review a lot of books. That is fun for me, and people get upset at that. I'm like, people get upset at someone negatively reviewing a book. People see criticism and they see it as like negativity, and it's like, no, I'm just critiquing it. This is something that people have been doing for years. And I think that's where anti-intellectualism comes in at, is where people cannot stand someone critiquing a book simply because it's a book that they love. I've noticed in the book community that people attach themselves to a book and then they go, oh, if you don't like this book, then you don't like me. I remember doing a poll on my Instagram and I was asking people, why do you get upset when someone doesn't like a book that you like? And I got so many answers. I wish I had like screenshotted it. I was gonna do a video about it, but then I scrapped it. So if you want to see a video on that, like a longer video on that, let me know. But basically, so many people were like, I view it as if you don't like this book, then you don't like me, which I think is literally insane. Like people literally attach their personalities to something. For me personally, like my favorite book of all time is Ninth House. There are so many people out there who don't like the book, who don't get the book. I'm not like, oh, if you don't like this book, then you don't like me. I'm like, more for me, because I grew up in the Tumblr era. Sometimes the gatekeeper is still in me. I try to fight the demon, but sometimes the gatekeeping demon is still in me. Okay, I'm trying to work on it. I've been working on it, like, okay. But like for me, it's like, yay, more for me. I'm glad you didn't like it, actually. Like, thank you. But a lot of people aren't like that. A lot of people attach themselves to these books, so if you don't like it, then like you don't like them, which I think is so crazy. So then it's like, if you critique a book and that critique is negative, suddenly you're the bad guy and we shouldn't be reviewing things negatively. If you have something better to say about the book, then you shouldn't say it, which that's just not how it works. Like, for years, probably as much as like literature has been created, we've been like critiquing books. And this conversation of like, oh, people shouldn't negatively review books has been going on for so long. I've been in the book community for like a decade, but I've been making videos since 2018. And on my other channel, my Anna Reads, which was my original channel before I switched over to this one, you want to watch some of my videos, you can. Like, the videos are still up. But I remember one of my very first videos was a discussion about negatively reviewing books and how important that it is. I don't think you can find the video on that channel, but if you're interested in it, I have to watch it first and then decide if I want to upload it. But if I like it, then I'll upload it. But my editing back then is not that. I don't think my editing now is that great, but my editing back then really wasn't that great. I also do Goodreads reviews, and if you've ever been on Goodreads, you've probably seen me in a review because I read any and everything. Sorry. I had to turn off my comments in my reviews because people would get so upset because I didn't like something that was like way too specific, or I didn't like something that they loved, or they didn't understand why something bothered me. And I would get so many comments. Like, I would be like, oh yeah, like I just didn't like I didn't like this that happened in the book. They would be like, that's so childish to not like something like that. And it's like, but it's a review. That's how I feel. Like, I remember I was going viral. I don't say I was going viral, but I remember there was a tweet that was like going mini viral, and it was about how I didn't really like this book because there were some things that like I didn't understand, and they didn't provide like it had a dictionary in the back, but the words that I didn't understand weren't in the back of the book. And it was very frustrating because it was like, what was the point of providing a dictionary but you didn't provide a dictionary for specific words? And I remember people being like really upset about my review, but it's like, that's just how I felt. And that's not why I didn't like the book, but people think that like any criticism that you have that isn't aligning with theirs is like suddenly like against them. And it's like, no, I just didn't really vibe with the book, and that was also an issue I had. But I didn't dislike this book because of this issue. That was just another thing added on top of it. And it's like, if you don't agree with people, or if you don't say exactly what they want to hear. So basically my point is to say that that is where anti-intellectualism starts, is when you try to dictate how people criticize a book. And if someone is criticizing the book, then you suddenly don't like it, and suddenly it's, oh, we should be more positive and we shouldn't leave negative reviews. Or even like authors entering reader spaces and like trying to be like, oh, well, this book really meant this, or like arguing with someone because they didn't like a book that you like. I think that's where it starts. I don't think that that's obviously not what it is, but I think that's where it starts. Even though I read critically, I don't judge people for reading for fun. That's kind of what you want to do, and that's fine. My issue is when people aren't getting out of their comfort zone, and it's not really an issue, but that's why I started my account. That's why I have a book talk. That's why I have, well, I don't, my Twitter is my personal Twitter, like it's not something connected to the book community, but that's why I'm on Bookstagram, is because I want to encourage people to read genres that aren't they aren't comfortable with. That's how I found so many of my favorite books. That's how I found so many genres. Like, I remember being like, oh, I don't really like nonfiction, it's so boring. And now I discover one of my favorite subgenres in nonfiction is celebrity memoirs. I eat them up, especially when it's like a child celebrity, a celebrity that I really fuck with, like a celebrity that I kind of know a little bit about, whatever it is. Like, that's when I start to realize like, oh, like this is for me. So that's what I want people to get. That has nothing to do with anti-intellectual, I don't know. But yeah, reading for fun is very popular right now. Like, when I first joined the book community in 2018, there were so many, and I mean, they're still going on, but like, people doing like rant reviews is not something new. People doing like discussion videos is not something new. It's not even something new to me. Like, I actually started off my channel doing rant reviews and doing discussion videos, but I removed a lot of them. But you can still go and find some of them on my original channel. Like, this is not nothing new to, I think reading for fun is very popular right now, and that's why BookTok is so popular, because that's what it is. Like, that's where things are already popular. That's why BookTok gets a book table at these bookstores and not Bookstagram or Book Twitter or BookTube, even though we've been around way longer than the book community. girl, my camera overheated and I don't remember what the hell I was saying, and I feel like it wasn't really that important anyway, so we're just gonna move on to what I was gonna say next. So basically, I feel like a big reason as to why people didn't read until 2020, which, you know, is the pandemic, because which was when everyone was forced to have a hobby, so a lot of people picked up reading, is because of classics and how they were forced to like read classics and analyze text in high school and stuff like that, and a lot of people lost their love for reading. And I remember when people started to come back in the community, they would be like, oh, like I haven't read since I was in high school, or I used to love reading. And also there, I know a lot of people's issue was a gifted kid burnout. I wasn't a gifted kid, so I don't know nothing about that. Very surprising, I know, but yeah, I know probably like a lot of people have like gifted kid burnout, or just burnout from having to read like these classics or whatever. And so I remember seeing a lot of people come back into like reading and being like, yeah, I haven't read in a long time. Or I remember I made a video about how I've been reading my entire life or something like that, and a lot of people were like, yeah, I stopped reading in high school because of classics, like, which is understandable to a certain extent. Like I feel like if you're like 30 and you're like I'll be like talking to some of my family members who will be grown ass men who are like 40, and they were like, yeah, like I just don't really like reading, like I was forced to in high school. Sir, you've lived enough time to have gone through high school 18 times. Pick up a book, okay? You can't, at a certain point, you can't use that whole, this is not what this video is about. Let me stop dragging people. I do understand people like not liking to read classics or to read because of classics that they had to read in high school, because like I said, I've always been an avid reader. But in high school, I was reading I wouldn't even read the classics. I remember I had to read Frankenstein, and during reading time, I would have my own copy of like To All the Boys I Loved Before. And so when everybody else was reading Frankenstein, I would be reading my own copy of my book. And to be honest, I really didn't read the book unless I cared. So like, I remember a book that I read in school. It wasn't a classic, and it was Unwind. And I loved that because it wasn't a classic, and it was something that what came out recently. It was a good topic. It was really good to analyze. A classic that I did love was there are a few classics that I did love. So I loved The Giver. I loved The Crucible, Lord of the Flies. There's some classics that like I loved, but if I didn't want to read something, I wasn't gonna read it, and that's my problem now. Like I remember we had to read like Frankenstein, and I literally still have not read it to this day. But eventually I formed my own love of classics, and now I have a classics collection. During the fall is when I read the most classics, and I had to find my own love for reading classics again outside of being forced to for school. But it's also because I had formed a love for analyzing, but also towards the end of high school, because I had read Unwind, which was a recent book, I had realized that I had a love for analyzing text because I had read something more recent. And as I graduated, because my sister is 3 years younger than me, so as I graduated, like our school was trying to bring in more books that were newer and more relatable to the audience versus classics. Like yes, I still think reading classics is important and analyzing classics is important, but I also think that you should bring in newer books to help a younger audience identify with it and to relate to it. And that's how we were taught to like talk to the text, which is literally just annotating. And that's why like I can go back to my copy of Looking for Alaska that I read in 2015, and I can go back and I can look at my analyzing and just how I relate to it, because my school taught that like talking to the text isn't just analyzing, but it's also writing in a book and writing your thoughts. I feel like when people first join the book community, they see like people writing in books and they're like, oh my gosh, you're writing in books, like this is crazy. It's just so crazy because books is like the only thing that people treat it as if there's a set rule. Like people act like you can't write in books, that there's a specific way to read books. If you read too many books and you're not taking in the information, then you're reading wrong, when there's no rule to reading. That's why like I love the girlies on BookTok who annotate every single book that they read. And you'll like, I remember when there was a discussion going on, I'm like, oh, these girls need to stop annotating every book that they read, because what do you have to say in that? Like these girls aren't analyzing these books and they're just writing whatever. And even if I'm just writing, oh my gosh, he's so cute, what does that matter? Because you're still analyzing a text, you're still talking to a text, and that also adds into intellectualism. Like, that helps you criticize it. Like, that helps you, even if you don't think about it that way. To me, I feel like that's still helping you analyze a book. Like, you're being like, oh, I like when a character does this, I like when a character does that. Yeah, you're not being like, oh, the curtains are blue because that symbolizes blah 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 blah, but you're already learning how to do that, so in the future you'll be able to be like, this means this and this means that. But anyways, basically, I do think that there is a problem. There is an anti-intellectual problem, but I don't think that it's BOOKTOK fault. If anything, it's publishers' fault for capitalizing off of these popular books and capitalizing off the fact that people will read anything. So then you're publishing anything, and you're publishing literal shit. And like, if you go through a lot of books that are being written, they're not being edited very well, and they're literally being pushed out. It's literally being popular books that are written, but they're not being like, they're only being published because they're popular and not because it's like, oh, I think people will really like these. So if anything, I think it's, but I also don't fully blame the publishers because that's their job. But I mean, publishing has a bunch of issues within its own. Like, we can really sit here and talk about it if you want to. But I think BOOKTOK isn't to blame for it. I think it's people who are pushing out these books. Like, when you look at like BOOKTOK tables and how undiverse they are, yes, BOOKTOK should be reading diversely, but there are diverse corners of BOOKTOK that popularize diverse readers. So people who are picking out BOOKTOK tables need to be looking in those corners and not just the non-minority people. The point is that I don't think BOOKTOK is the cause of anti-intellectualism, because they're still reading. That's the point. Anti-intellectualism isn't just rather you read or don't read or read critically or whatever, but they're still reading, and that's more than you could say about a lot of people. They can read. They are showing that they can read. So therefore, I don't think that they're giving into anti-intellectualism. And like, if you're somebody who's read from middle school to high school, I know that you've had a Wattpad phase. To me, that's what they're going through right now. They're going through their Wattpad phase. They're just starting to discover how much they really love reading, and so they're reading anything that they can get their hands on. And sometimes it's not the best books ever, but I think as they evolve, like, we're literally in still the early stages of people who started reading from like 2020 to finding their own taste. I think it takes years to find your own taste. I mean, I didn't realize that I love, my very first fantasy I ever read was The Children of Blood and Bone, and that was in 2018. I hadn't read any fantasy up until then, and when I read that book, now fantasy is one of my favorite genres. I didn't read like majority sci-fi up until like 3 summers ago. Sci-fi is one of my favorite genres. Like, as sci-fi, fantasy, horror, romance, with sci-fi, fantasy, horror, literary fiction. Romance kind of gets on my nerves. Romance right now to me is not good. Like, I really hate romance right now. That's why, like, if you watch this video and you're kind of like, damn, this bitch got a lot to say about romance, it's because I really hate romance right now. If you want to see a video on that, let me know, because I can really get into the tea. Like, romance right now is pissing me the fuck off. So what the hell was I talking about? Whatever. Anyways, my point is that you will read better books, and they'll look back on those books and be like, damn, those books fucking suck. Just don't think we've come around to it. But all in all, reading bad books doesn't make you anti-intellectual either. You just read books that suck and you enjoy them, and I think everyone is allowed that. Like, I literally sit here and I talk about shitty books all the time. One of my favorite books is from Blood and Bone. Like, I love the first book. The series as a whole, she lost me, but I mean, I have special editions of it. I have like a special mug. I ordered a box set from it. I only have two editions of the first book, and then regular copies for the rest. So don't be thinking I sit here and I own like a bunch of shit for this series. That poster right there is literally from Blood and Ash. Like, I know that it's terrible? Yeah, but I think that everybody's allowed to have a shitty book. I love the Zodiac Academy books. Are they great? No. You can literally pick up the first chapter and realize how terribly written those books are. Like, they're fucking shit. I love them though. Like, I think they're fun. I like the astrology. I love astrology. I like the like magicalism of it and the fairies. Is it a good book? No. There's so many issues I have with that book. Why are the books like 500 pages each, and the first 3 books are 2 weeks? What is going on here? I mean, when you pick up the book, the writing is terrible. Okay, but I liked it. I had fun. Everybody's allowed their objectively bad books, okay? And just because someone sits there and reads terrible books every single day doesn't mean they're anti-intellectual. they just read bad books. I just think that as long as people are reading, we will be fine. That is my point here. Because BookTok, unfortunately, I hate to admit it, saved the publishing industry. Like, if you were reading or in the book community before 2020, you would know that Barnes & Noble was originally supposed to close down. Like, it was literally we were about to have another Borders, if you remember what Borders is. And it's unfortunate that BookTok gets the credit for saving the publishing industry and for popularizing books that were already popular, but it saved the community. Like, I don't know, I mean, obviously I don't think that we were gonna, like, books were just gonna disappear and stuff like that, but I think that it helped so many people start reading. So now all these authors can get published, and now all these indie authors are getting traditionally published, and now we're seeing, I mean, we need to be seeing more authors of color, but we're seeing more authors of color than we were before. Okay, we need to be seeing even more. We need to be seeing 3 times as more, but we're getting there. And I think that, unfortunately, and I can make a video on my issue with I have so many issues about BookToks that I can make videos about, and I feel like people are probably not gonna like this video because I'm not shitting on BookTok and I'm understanding like where they're coming from. I don't think people think that BookTok is the reason for anti-intellectualism, but I think that, like, BookTok as a whole, I don't think that's the problem. And, like, there's gonna be people in every community that's gonna be like, why are we reading books negatively when you just mean criticizing? Like, I feel like people who, like, don't like to criticize books probably look at my reviews and like, oh, she only talks negatively about these books, which I mean I do nobody's commented that to me, but I do wrap-ups and I talk about books that I like. Wrap-ups don't get as many views as compared to, like, my video essays or my book reviews, but I post them so people can see, like, I do have books out here that I love and I'm not just a hater. But I hate that, like, or just because you criticize books you're seen as a hater or that you're negatively reviewing books, and that's not what it is. You're just criticizing a book, but suddenly it's like criticizing is like used as another term for negative, and that's not true. There's always going to be that issue in the community because it's always been that issue in the community. Like, it's these conversations that we're having in the community are not new. Like, these conversations, I've been around for a very long time, y'all. These conversations have been around for a very long time. I will say some new topics are anti-intellectualism and fast fashion. Those are new topics. We do have an anti-intellectual problem, but that is not the cause. Is because people are not reading at home. Parents are not forcing their children to read at home. It's the fact that students are passing to their next grade whether they can read or not. But yeah, I hope that you like this video. I'm very nervous for this video because I don't know how it's going to be perceived, but I guess we'll see. And if we don't like it, then I could come back and reassess. I don't know. And if you want to see any of the other videos that I suggest, I feel like I suggested so many videos in here because I have so many video essays that I want to do, but I have to do research on them, and I don't know. I was doing a lot of, like, rant reviews, and I don't really want to sit here. Like, they're fun, they're fine, and sometimes they help me get out of a reading slump, but I really don't want to sit here when I'm, like, having a good reading streak and, like, I'm reading these books that I want to read, and even if I'm not loving all of them, like, I'm having a good reading streak. I'm reading 8 books right now. That's insane. But I don't have the time to slip in a book that I know I'm gonna hate when I'm already struggling to read. And then one of the 7 books is literally Words of Radiance because I hate myself, and I decided I wanted to try and read this entire series before the newest book comes out December 6th. So I really don't have the time right now to sit here and read a book that I'm gonna hate, and I have no problem with doing it, and I read them quicker. I can just read them in the night and just make my little notes as I go along, but I'm reading it. I don't have the time to right now. I really don't. So yeah, I just want to do more video essays, and I feel like that's what people like more. Like, I feel like, I mean, the rant reviews were doing fun, they were doing fine when they're the topic of discussion, but I feel like, I don't know, I have to see what content does what. Basically, I'm still in, like, my discovery era. Also, is anybody interested in a dark academia video? Because I said I would want to do one in September, but I never did it because I got nervous that a deep dive into, like, the dark academia, like, subgenre, I wanted, like, how I did one for Enemies to Lovers, and that one did well, but I'm afraid that, like, my dark academia one won't do too well. So I guess I just want to see, like, what people think about that. A video about romance in the published industry, if you're interested in that, let me know. And there was another one, but I can't remember what it was. But yeah, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.